Hey, this is Ron Larson. Welcome to Surge Leadership. I want to ask you a question. Are you initiating, are you imitating, or are you implementing? That's a great question for the day, isn't it? As a business leader, a church leader, a nonprofit leader, are you initiating, are you imitating, or are you implementing? You see, so many people today are imitating. They're looking at something that is good and they say, I want what they have, so I'm going to imitate their ways. And that could work to a certain extent. But the problem is, we not only imitate their strengths, we imitate their weaknesses as well. And we bring into our corporation, our church, the flaws of that system. And many times, we don't have what that other person or group has to imitate it properly. So we take little pieces and we try to weave them together as a tapestry, and it turns out being just a convoluted mess. So I want to give you a challenge today to do something different. I want to encourage you to implement. That is, find something that is indigenous to your culture that you can improve by 10 to 15%, that you can do a little better than the other people that are around you, that you can ramp up based on your skill set, your strengths, and implement that as soon as possible. Now, let me do that in the context of one word. And this is really where the heart of our lesson is in Surge Leadership today. And that is doing it in the context of a story. People love stories, don't we? The new Batman movie is out right now. I haven't seen it yet, excited about it. But I remember, man, the old Batman movies. I go all the way back to the original Batman, Adam West. And just the excitement that brought, the plot, the sizzle, the villain, the surprise ending, the triumph of good over evil in the end. We all like a good story, don't we? Well, what story is your business telling? What story does your church represent? What story is your nonprofit being known as? You see, that really is the critical thing, because people aren't reading content anymore. I remember Steve Jobs, when he wanted to, right before he was actually let go of the company, he wanted to sell the new Lisa computer. And so he took out 9 pages of ads in the New York Times. Must have paid a fortune. And he described all the technology, all the geek language, thinking people would love that. And the Lisa failed as a computer. Later on, after Pixar and going through that endeavor and adventure in his life, he came back to Apple. And this time, he developed a new computer and a new toy that people could use. And the whole ad campaign, instead of being 9 pages long in a major newspaper, was 2 words on a billboard: think different. You see, he changed his story. So many people today think that they've got to do this long, involved description of who they are so that the customer will understand what they're all about and be enticed by this understanding. But people don't make decisions on the basis of understanding anymore. They make decisions on the basis of their emotions. How does this make them feel? Now, you don't have to like that. You don't have to agree with it, but it's the truth. And stories are the best way to get to the heart of a matter in explaining who you are to someone else. So let me give you just 2 or 3 R's today of what makes a good story. Here's the first thing. Write this down. The wow, the beautiful, the awesome, the inspiring, the incredible. In fact, I love what Alfred Hitchcock, who used to make some of the scariest movies when I was a kid, said about a rave or rap story. And he said this: a good story is life with the dull parts taken out. Don't you like? I mean, isn't that a great quote? A good story is life with the dull parts taken out. So much of us in our communication, our marketing, the story that we're trying to tell someone has too much noise. We all need a filter that filters the noise out. Steve Jobs, after losing his job at the company he had founded and then coming back, changed from 9 pages to 2 words because he realized there was too much noise and people were missing the story. They were missing he was not touching the hearts of the people to get them emotionally connected to changing their purchasing. And that's true in anything we do in life. I know I travel a lot and speak in a lot of different places. And I used to use one company for my car rental. And I would be on this long flight and I'd get off and had to walk 10 miles, it seemed like, to get to the car rental place. And I knew I still had to drive to the place I was going to speak. And this one particular company that I used, I've used it for years, would have a little script they'd go through. Well, what brings you to Orlando, Mr. Larson? Well, are you going to have any time for pleasure, or is this all business? Or what was the weather like when you left West Virginia? And I'd be like, dude, I just want to sign the contract, go get my car, and get to my destination. And I just remember thinking to myself, if I can just get past this guy, I'll give him $20 just to give me the keys to the car. Now I use a different company. And man, it's already there. Man, I just go up, I sign the little thing digitally, or maybe I've already pre-signed. The keys are in the car, and I drive off. There's no script. There's no explanation. This company realized that I did not want to have to process noise to get what I needed. Now, this is the same thing in your communication of the story of your company or your church or your nonprofit. What is the wow factor? What is the thing that just people go, wow, about it? What just inspires them to want to make that purchase or make that commitment or come and attend your particular event? What is the all-encompassing emotive pull on their heart that is going to get them from where they are to where you want them to be? That's the first R. Here's the second one, relevant. Here's the second thing about a good story. Is it relevant? In other words, I remember starting a message. I'm a preacher, as many of you know, and I started a message the other day on giving, and I started it this way. Every one of you in this room right now are rich. I mean, you could just see people looking around because this is not a very wealthy church, and I'm sure they were going, what is he doing? What is he talking? I'm not rich. And I said, compared to like 90% of the world, you're rich. You have a car, you have a home, you have a job, you have money in your pocket, you have enough to eat, you have clothes to wear. 85 to 90% of the world doesn't have that. So you are rich. And I began my message. You see, I was relevant to what people did not even believe about themselves. But it was relevant in the sense that it made them think. It made them question. It made them question me. And so every story needs some relevance. And the way you build relevance, the best way to build relevance in a good story is to have a villain. Who's the bad guy? Every Batman needs the Penguin or the Joker. Jason Bourne, he had this group that was after him and trying to take him out. And he was trying to just find his identity. Every great story has a villain that makes that story relevant. But what if in that story of, let's say, Jason Bourne, the Bourne identity, what if, the writers of the stories, just got Jason involved with a girl and they started dating, they started having love talks and then he went to the gym and he worked out because he was concerned about his weight and then he got a cat and it showed him grooming this cat. Man, we'd lose interest in the story. What we want to see is chase, adventure, bullets flying, things blowing up, Jason doing what only Jason can do, getting out of hard things. We need a villain in a story. In my particular work, my villain is the devil. And so, a lot of the stories that I tell have the devil woven in there because he is the villain. And people want to know, how do I win over this villain? The villain may not be the devil in your particular business, but it may be something that person is struggling with, something they are confused by. I remember when computers came out, I didn't understand interfaces and I didn't know how to work the mouse. And finally, some people figured out voice command. Now I got my Netflix thing going on. I don't even have to push the button now. I can just say, the name of the show I want to watch, and it automatically brings it up because somebody knew that the villain in my life was the 50 buttons on that remote control that makes me feel like I'm going to send a rocket to the moon if I hit the wrong one. Have you ever felt that way? I don't know what ANY is or ECT what does that mean? And so it was too complicated. The villain was this complication of a very simple thing. So what can your company do in telling your story that makes you address some challenge, some struggle, some need, some problem that this customer is going through? That's what you've got to do in developing a good story. What or who is the villain? Here's the third thing that I want to give you in our list of R's, and that is repeatable. Repeatable. Is it repeatable? Is there something there that they're going to remember? I remember reading about FDR, the great president that took us through the Great Depression, and the song that was being sung at that time, Happy Days Are Here Again. My dad, who went through the Depression, would sing that song. I never understood what he was talking about, but man, to him, it meant something. Or maybe this one, Reagan. Maybe you remember him talking about in his inaugural speech, a city that is a shining city that is sitting on a hill. Or maybe this one, Men's Warehouse. Before they went out of business, had a great slogan. You're going to like the way you look. I mean, maybe they're back in business because people resonated with it. I want to look. So what is this? What is this repeatable line in the story that's going to cause me to remember. You see, as my friend Sean Dozier says, facts tell, but stories sell. And that is so true. And in a story, there's got to be one thing that you repeat, that is repeatable, that people go, oh, I can get my head around that. That's exactly what I've been thinking about. And that addresses something I'm dealing with right now in my life. As you share your story, as you create your brand, as you market your product, as you try to give people help in their spiritual or emotional or physical lives, this is the key thing. I remember the other day I started on a diet. It's been about 4 or 5 weeks now, and I know I don't look like it, but I did back then. And I did this knowing for years I needed to go on a diet. And finally, one day, one of my little grandkids patted my stomach, because that's where all my weight goes, and said, "Pappy, are you pregnant?" Man, that line stayed in my mind for weeks. I didn't want to look like that. And then I saw a picture of myself sitting at the dinner table, and one of my kids had taken it, and I went, "Who's that guy with the big stomach?" And it took me back to what that grandkid had said, "Pappy, are you pregnant?" That repeatable line in the story that caused me to make a decision to change my life. And now some many, many pounds down and feeling a lot better and a lot more energy thanks to my wife, who's my coach, and I'm enjoying something. See, I had to deal with the villain in my life, which was being about 35 pounds overweight. And what made me address that was one line in the ongoing story of my life from a grandchild who was just trying to be funny. But man, it stuck in my mind and transformed my life. Here's the last thing, the fourth R I want to give you, and that is the reason. The reason. What is everybody in life today, whether it's spiritual or physical or selling a product, buying a product, whatever it is, everybody wants to survive and thrive. Survive and thrive. If you're not addressing those two basic needs in people, whether you're religious or secular, survive and thrive. How do I get through this? How do I live my life in such a way that I not only survive what I'm going through, but how do I thrive as a result of going through what I'm going through? How do I move from just simple survival, this is what some people are asking, into thriving? And your story has got to address these two core values of surviving and thriving. In other words, people are asking, how are you going to make me be able to win the day? Let me close with this story. I remember when Bill Clinton was running for president in 1992 against George H.W. Bush, and they were in I think it was like a town meeting, and they'd been asked the question about the national debt. And George W. Bush simply got up and he began this long, drawn-out, convoluted, complex answer to why the national debt and addressing it was important. And everybody was just kind of rolling their eyes and falling asleep. They just weren't interested. Bill Clinton was asked the same question. And he looked at the woman asking the question, how would he deal with the national debt? And he said, "Ma'am, do you know anybody that's lost their job?" Now, in the early 1990s, a lot of people had lost their jobs. He said, "Let me tell you why addressing the national debt is important." And he took it back to that person who did know someone, many people that had lost their jobs. And man, he won the debate because he addressed the need to survive and to thrive. Here are 3 questions I want to leave you with in this Surge Leadership. Number 1, what's the lead heart-touching story of your company, your group, or your nonprofit? What is the emotive story that can be told in just a few moments that identifies who you are? Number 2, where's your focus right now? Is it on your solution or your problem? You see, your feelings follow your focus. And wherever you're focusing is where you're going to give your time and your energy to. So right now, are you focusing upon the problem? Are you just talking about your problems, trying to rehearse your problems? And every day you wake up and there is those problems are staring you in the face once more? Or are you addressing solutions? Are you imitating the solutions that somebody else has to that problem? Or are you implementing fresh approaches that will solve that problem and enable people to survive and thrive? And number 3, what change do you need to make immediately to see things going forward in your company? That means you're going to have to get past your fears. That means you're going to have to move past your hesitations. That means you're going to have to spend some time communicating even more to people that just haven't bought into the idea yet. But when you do, your story begins to change. And when your story begins to change and it addresses the hearts of people, I guarantee you, your sales will go up, More people will come to your church. More people will be involved in your nonprofit. There'll be more money flowing your way. When you change your story, you change your company. Today, what can you do positively right now to change, to get the goals that you've set for yourself, your employees, and your company? Hey, it's been good to be with you today at Surge Leadership. See you next time.